Hi, I'm Stephen Drunsic, and welcome to Q&A Live. As you all know, we have a change of seasons ahead of us. Winter season is almost upon us, and we're fortunate enough today to have a very special guest by the name of Jim Sullivan. Jim Sullivan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jim, when everyone talks about Magic Mountain, usually, people think of that small mountain a few miles past Bromley. And, it's had a very interesting history since 1960, when Hans Thorner originally opened it up. It's had some challenges, some ups and downs, and of course now we have you here today. And what exactly is your relationship with the mountain?
I've been with Magic Mountain since 2006.
Okay.
And I'm the president and part owner, and you might say chief cook and bottle washer.
Chief cook and bottle washer.
I do almost all of it.
Now, how did you end up coming to get involved with Magic Mountain?
Well, it's somewhat of a long story, but I'll try to condense it here.
Okay.
I grew up ski racing in southern Vermont at Mount Snow. I grew up in a tiny little village called Jacksonville, Vermont. Correct.
Population 237.
Exactly. And so I've always had a love of the ski industry and been exposed to it for many, many years. After undergraduate college, I worked in the ski industry for a few years, running ski racing camps both in the United States and Europe. And then I decided to go to law school. And thereafter, I proceeded to practice law in Connecticut for 13 years.
Okay.
And somewhere along the 2005 year, when I hit approximately 40 years old, I started to get the itch to get back to Vermont.
Okay.
And meanwhile, I was coaching ski racing at Mount Snow on weekends for many years, starting in law school. And I would drive van loads of kids up to various ski races at Okemo and Bromley, and we would always do the Londonderry Cutoff. Mm-hmm. And this was in the 1990s when Magic was closed.
Yep.
And I would drive by and look at this fabulous natural facility with really unmatched terrain in southern Vermont and say to myself, boy, that is too good a hill for somebody not to be doing something with it. So that feeling, that passion for it kind of festered for a few years. And in 2006, I started to make inquiries about the possibility of getting involved in Magic Mountain.
Who owned it at the time?
At the time, it was owned by an entity called Magic Mountain Management.
Okay.
They had reopened the mountain in 1998 after it was closed since 1991.
Yep.
And they operated it for 6 years at that point. And they did listen, I give them a great deal of credit for getting the mountain back open, because that is no easy task. But candidly, they were struggling a little bit. And it provided an opportunity for me to step in and get involved in the management and ownership of the mountain. And we've been at it for 7 seasons now, and gradually, hopefully, making an uptick every year and doing a little bit better every year.
Well, it's good to see that the mountain, of course, is open and operating and, doing quite well under your tutelage. I remember my first experience with Magic, and I think a lot of people that live around here, a lot of locals, have always seen Magic as the mountain with some more serious terrain. It's got about 41% expert terrain, double black diamonds, if you want to call them double black diamonds. I mean, not compared to some places in Europe and maybe out west, but it's got some pretty serious terrain. And Magic Mountain was a place to go if you got a big dump.
To this day, it's still
that case.
You should see the people that flock to the mountain when we get a big dump of snow. Not only locals, many employees from other ski areas. Mm-hmm. People do day trips up from Massachusetts and Connecticut. So we're still definitely known for that, because when we get the big snow, it highlights how great our terrain is. Because
you got the steeps.
Exactly.
Yes, which you need.
Exactly.
Which is, I think, a good point. Just out of curiosity, you said you worked at some resorts in Europe.
Well, I used to run ski racing camps,
okay.
And this was from approximately 1986 through 1989.
Any in Switzerland?
And we actually went to France in the summertime.
Okay.
We went to Tignes and Les Deux Alpes in France.
I feel sorry for you. Well, the reason I ask that is because I guess if we're just trying to explore a little bit of the early history of the mountain, I think maybe a lot of people might find this interesting. Hans Thorner.
Yes.
He came from Switzerland in the 50s, I believe, right?
Yes.
He was the first certified ski instructor, and he wanted to settle or create the concept of a small Swiss village, and he landed in Londonderry, is that correct?
Exactly. When Hans first landed in the U.S., he landed in Franconia, New Hampshire, and his family operated classic old ski house bed and breakfast. But Hans had a bigger vision. He wanted his own place. He wanted his own mountain. And so he ventured over into southern Vermont, and he, after actually doing a lot of research and a lot of legwork, he discovered Magic Mountain, which wasn't, it's actually technically called Glebe Mountain. And Hans purchased the property and started to develop this great hill. And the concept of the great terrain at Magic was really started with Hans Thorner. He chose this mountain because he deemed it having the best terrain in southern Vermont. So
was Stratton open at this point? Had that been developed
Stratton
yet,
opened the same year,
Okay.
1960-61.
So there's no, that was just coincidence, or was there any relationship between Hans and the individuals that were also, because I think they had a Swiss concept going over there too, or was it Austrian?
Well, they had Austrian, but there's no relationship between the two, but the general story is the same. You get these entrepreneurial skier types from Austria and Switzerland and places in various parts of Europe come to the U.S. and try to spread their sport in this country.
And somehow maybe thought that the terrain, the geography in New England may have reminded them of some of the lowland areas over there, I presume.
Well,
that's what I've heard to some extent.
That's exactly right. Hans's vision was to create a mini Swiss village at the base of a mountain that was essentially self-sustaining, meaning that people could come for a weekend, park their car on Friday, and have a great skiing, après-ski experience, replete with Swiss food, etc., throughout the whole weekend.
Alpina House.
Exactly, exactly. So that was his vision, and he did actually a remarkable job at realizing his vision. Not only did he develop the mountain, but he developed a village of approximately 60 or 70 homes immediately adjacent to the mountain, a couple of inns, and it was very successful. He did a really nice job.
So all of those structures, all those chalets, the base lodge, that's all original, back to the original development of the mountain.
Yes, I mean they were built over the years in the 1960s.
Okay, I just get some curious ticket price facts. In 1962, 1963, according to Buxton's Eastern Ski Slopes, a full day season's pass was $6.50.
Those were the days.
Okay, and so he obviously had operated that for a number of years. Now, when did Timberside come into the
Timberside is, just to let everybody know, is a small family-oriented ski area essentially on the backside of Magic Mountain. And that was actually developed in the 1960s also. There are a lot of people out there that I run into today that started their skiing and had family houses over there. So Timber Quest, my mistake. Timber Ridge was the name of the resort. Was a viable and vibrant little area as compared to Magic and Stratton, some of the bigger areas. And they operated until the mid-1980s.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. There's a number of individuals out there that have done some interesting research. You know, back in the early heyday era of ski area development, you know, Vermont was populated, and I wish I had my notes in order here. Vermont had something on the order of like 181 ski resorts.
Yes.
And I think we're down to what, 20 today?
It's slightly over 20, but it's remarkably lower.
Yeah. You know, I've got two interesting articles. One talking about the decline of the ski industry, of course, and that was written after that horrible year in 2011, 2012.
Yes.
And then, of course, as you can probably back up, this past season was a record season for Vermont.
It was a terrific year. And interestingly enough, the snow didn't really start falling, the natural snow didn't really start falling until late January, early February.
Which just goes to say that even though we missed the biggest part of the year, the holiday season around Christmas, we still had one of the biggest seasons ever.
Yeah, and that's really attributable primarily to the advancements in snowmaking nowadays. Even without significant natural snow falling in December and early January, and coupled with a nasty January thaw, the mountains in general were able to cover their hills with great snow, totally attributable to the advanced snowmaking systems nowadays.
Okay, now, I know we're jumping around here because I still want to hop through a little bit of the history here, but that does bring up a big important point, and that's the whole concept of the technology and how that's enabled, a lot of these smaller mountains to thrive, particularly when you have, the seasonal fluctuation and variability in temperature. I mean, I remember 2012, that season in March, I think it was March 18th.
That was the last day. March 17th was our last day.
And it was 83 degrees, and I was up at Bromley, and I think we were, short sleeves and shorts, and then I finished that day off with a dip in the quarry, which is the first earliest day I've ever been in the quarry. First time I've ever done something like that. But I imagine, when you have a season like that, it can be particularly frustrating and nerve-wracking because you're having trouble holding snow, and then, of course, how does that set you up for the next year?
That 2011, 2012 was a particularly challenging season for all the ski areas. If you look at the statewide statistics, skier visits were off notably. I think technically they were only off 13 to 15%, but at smaller areas such as mine, where we don't have the mammoth snowmaking systems, we were down by more than 35%. Mm-hmm. So a year like that is a definite challenge, and it reinforces the need for augmenting our snowmaking system, which has been something we've been doing for the past 6 years on a real gradual basis.
Well, okay, so tell me about your operation. Tell me, what's the size of the mountain? How many trails do you have? How many employees do you employ, I guess on a seasonal basis? Give us some background here.
Yeah, here are a few quick facts about Magic Mountain.
Okay.
There are 45 trails. The thing that we pride ourselves in most is that the trails are all unique and different, and they're sort of old-time Vermont trails winding through the natural terrain and the woods, as opposed to great big boulevards that seem to be the norm nowadays. Mm-hmm. At many areas. Another thing we pride ourselves on, which we've been developing over the past several years, is a lot of great glade skiing, off-piste, in the woods type skiing. Mm-hmm. We've been clearing out the underbrush, and so especially on those powder days that we were referencing before, people love to jump in the woods. And get a feel for that. And that's actually something within the industry that all ski areas are attempting to capitalize on now, because it's such a fun thing for skiers to do, and it provides something new and different for them to do.
Out of curiosity, does that affect your liability quote?
That's an interesting question. As a bottom line, no, it doesn't. Okay. I'm surprised to some degree.
Putting those obstacles in the middle of your fall line, you would think that.
Yeah, we do. I mean, of course, the tickets on the back have all the legal
Sure.
disclaimers about natural obstacles, etc. So thus far, it has not.
Okay. So. How many people do you employ on a typical winter season?
When we are going full bore, we have just under 50. We had 48 employees last year. That includes our ski school.
All right.
We've got a core of about 25 to 30 people that are non-ski school that they keep the mountain going, and everybody is a jack of at least more than one trade. We've got a lot of job sharing that goes on, and somebody who's making snow is probably also driving a snowcat. Somebody who's making hamburgers may well be working the register or selling tickets.
Okay.
So we do a lot of cross training, and everybody jumps in wherever needed.
Okay. And how many skier visits have you been averaging for the past few years?
We had our best year in my tenure last year at approximately 21,000.
Okay.
Which
good for you.
In relative terms is extremely small. However, when we first landed there, the previous year, the year prior to when I got there, which was 06-07, the previous year was another one of those disastrous winters, and they had less than 5,000 skier visits.
Goodness.
So the mountain, quite frankly, was on the brink of not functioning again, which gave me an opportunity to get involved. And so we've gone up considerably since then. We've gradually increased from 15 to 16 to 18 to 20, and last year we were 21. We did have that aberration year in 2011-12, where our skier visits went down to about 12,500.
Which everyone shared with you.
Exactly.
So what is it that you've been doing that's been particularly successful in you getting these, 10, 12, 15 percentage point increases on an annual basis?
Here's what we're trying to do.
What are you doing differently?
The primary reason for that is we have focused all of our investment on snowmaking. Okay. Now, to be candid with you, we don't have a great deal of money to invest, so we can't put millions of dollars into a snowmaking system every year. But the little bit we do have to invest and the little bit of profit that we make all goes right back into the mountain, and it goes right into the snowmaking system. The mountain actually was covered with snowmaking pipe that was adequate to cover approximately 75% of the mountain.
Okay.
However, when I got there, only about a third of that was working. So only about 25% of that was functional. So what we've been doing each year is going out and breaking out the welders and sending guys up on the hill with welders and replacing broken pipes and that type of thing, and each year reclaiming a trail or two. And so we're up to a point now where we've got about 65 or 70% snowmaking coverage.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Now, the snowmaking system itself, is that run off electricity? Is it diesel?
It's a combination of the two. The snowmaking is combined two things, creating compressed air and then putting water up the hill under high pressure. And you combine the two out of hopefully a modern high efficiency snow gun to get the biggest bang for your buck, and you get snow. So the two primary costs associated with snowmaking are electricity and diesel fuel to run the compressors that create the compressed air.
So those are probably two of your largest cost components.
Correct.
On your budget. Okay. But you know, when I go to, well, I guess your ski area and a lot of these areas now, they've got these, I believe the manufacturer is even local. Some of these they look like turbo fans.
Fan guns, exactly.
Fan guns. Are they just more efficient?
What the fan gun has done to sort of revolutionize the snowmaking world is they have essentially eliminated the need for compressed air, which eliminates the need for diesel fuel to create the compressed air via a compressor. So the fan gun actually has an internal compressor there. So all you need to do is shoot water up the hill under high pressure. The fan gun then turns that water into snow by virtue of its own compressor and sending the water out into the atmosphere.
Would you say that the quality of man-made snow has improved since the advent of the technology? I mean, obviously it must have been.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Okay.
Back in the 1970s, when snowmaking was in its early stages, it often produced, and those of you who've been skiing for a long time will probably remember this, sort of the yellow snowballs that are ice balls that really took a long time to groom out. Nowadays, you can actually set your guns to almost make powder.
Interesting. And what's your ideal temperature for making snow?
Essentially, the colder the better.
Okay.
When it gets below zero, things get a little precarious because you have to worry about freeze-ups. But the optimum temperature is probably about 10 degrees Fahrenheit with low humidity. Humidity is a huge factor in the equation.
Okay, interesting. I guess one of the challenging things, and I see this every year, you know, it used to be like Killington would try to blow snow. They'd be the first to open, and I think Okemo would be blowing snow. I remember riding at Okemo last year in, October something, possibly late October. And there's always that risk. You spend all this money to blanket snow, and then we have a thaw, or it warms up to 60 degrees. You know, it was 90 degrees here yesterday, and you lose it all. So I guess for you, you know, where you've got a little bit of a tighter budget than some of these larger operations, you know, target date for laying snow, like long-range forecasting, kind of paint that picture for us.
That's exactly.
Put it all together?
We are different than some of the big players, and all of the big players, and quite frankly, everybody's a big player as compared to us. But we've got to be much more strategic in terms of our snowmaking. Many areas get out that super early snow and try to get open primarily for marketing purposes, and they have substantial budgets where if they do lose the snow due to a thaw, they're not particularly affected by their bottom line. Whereas we have to be really careful about when we turn those snow guns on, and we've got to be fairly certain, or as certain as one can be, that this snow is going to stick around for a while. So we don't make any effort to open in November or even Thanksgiving weekend. We start to think about making snow in early December and shoot for a mid-December opening and try to hold on steady right through about mid-April, which we did this year.
And what do you have for a snowmaking fleet?
We've got
snow grooming fleet. I'm sorry.
Snow grooming fleet. Okay. Yeah, grooming is actually a critical.
That's also critical, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's happened in the ski industry over the past several years, probably 15 or 20 years, is the grooming has gotten so much better. These machines, they're approximately $250,000 machines. They can work wonders with even the most difficult snow conditions, and the skiing public has come to expect really solid grooming. One of the Achilles heels with Magic in the past, and in particular before I got there, was complaints about the grooming. And so one of the things that we have
Why
done...
is it? They just had a lack of grooming equipment, or they weren't grooming properly?
A combination of lack of equipment and combined with the fact that they actually just weren't grooming enough slopes, according to, like I said, the general skiing public. However, I should quickly add that many people who ski Magic actually consider that an attribute. So what we've done is we've picked up our game in the grooming department. We went out and purchased a modern, updated grooming machine that does a fabulous job. We've got that and a backup. So we've got 2 grooming machines that are out there. And the hills we choose to groom are perfectly groomed. They're as well groomed as anywhere out there.
What does a modern, up-to-date grooming machine cost, ballpark? You don't have to tell us what you spent, but just, you know.
The current rate is $260,000.
So that's a sizable chunk of, let's say you've got a pool of investment dollars. Even one of those can make a big dent.
It makes a huge dent, and you know, quite frankly, we got our machine that came off a 3-year lease, so we got it in its 4th season for considerably less than that. But it was still a fabulous machine, and that thing will go for at least another 10 years for us.
And now, someone who's operating the groomer, do they have to? Is that a licensed operating position, or is that you just, you know, kind of a trick of the trade they learn from someone else? I mean, I imagine there's some science to it.
Yeah,
you know?
it's a highly skilled position, as a matter of fact, especially when you're putting somebody in a $250,000 piece of equipment. These guys have to actually know the equipment and know the hill and know the science of grooming. And I use the word science not all that loosely. These guys they essentially what they're doing is they're recreating a new surface every night.
Well, this is important to tell everyone out there, because I think there's a lot of people obviously that, you know, enjoy the slopes on a regular basis, and they probably don't know too much about what goes on at night.
And it's a great deal of work. For instance, my primary groomer jumps in the Snowcat at approximately 4 or 5 p.m. and he's oftentimes out there for close to 12 hours.
Wow.
Making the track for the next day.
He's your only groomer?
I've got one primary and then a secondary groomer. Depending on if there's a lot of new snow, we sometimes have 2 guys out there.
Okay. And of course there's always a challenge too, is when to groom powder.
Exactly.
Because, you know, of course, when you do have a powder day, the last thing you want to go is be, you know, running through groomed snow. But you know, typically you let everyone ski through, track it up, and then follow up with groomers late in the day or overnight, and then you've got nice groomed packed powder the next day.
Yeah, that is one thing that we are known for is stretching out that time frame a little bit where we groom the powder. I mean, we'll always have.
You can't groom redline.
That's true. There are actually many trails on our mountain that we just can't get a groomer down, that they're so steep.
Yeah.
But in general, we let the people ski in the powder, and the people who come to Magic, especially those who flock on powder days, love the fact that we leave it free and leave it open, and people are still getting fresh tracks at 2:33 in the afternoon. And then after that, we'll groom it out, but even sometimes we'll let it go for 2 or 3 days on some of the trails.
A lot of people might compare your operation to Mad River Glen, which, of course, if anyone's, you know, driven around and seen Mad River Glen, skied if you can. It's just known to be have very serious terrain. They don't do a lot of grooming. They don't do a lot of snowmaking. They rely on, you know, Mother Nature. They've got the single chairlift, and also the caliber of the skiing and not snowboarding at Mad River Glen tends to be very high. Would you say that is fairly accurate reflection of the patrons at Magic Mountain as well?
I would. As a matter of fact, Mad River Glen is a real kindred spirit. We're sort of the 2 areas in Vermont that like to envision ourselves to some degree as throwback areas. Both a lot of similarities, great terrain, a little bit of a free spirit type mountain, a lot of great skiers at each mountain, people who love the steeps, love the woods, that type of stuff. The primary difference between us and Mad River is they have actually made a concerted commitment to essentially not getting involved in the world of snowmaking. They get a little more natural snow up there than we do down here, but they basically say to their patrons, here it is. If it snows, you know it's as good as anything it gets. If it doesn't snow, good luck.
They actually had, I think, 54 days in the 2011-2012 season as a result?
Exactly. So in a bad year, they can really take it on the chin. Whereas what we've been trying to do at Magic is to have that same Mad River free spirit, wood skiing, off-piste skiing, steep trails, that type of stuff, But we understood in looking really at the snowfall in southern Vermont, looking at the immediate competition in southern Vermont, that we needed to up our game in snowmaking. Until we could put out a reliable product, i.e. snow on the hill, people weren't going to come there. And it's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge, quite frankly. We're getting better every year. We're making more and more snow every year. And there's finally a perception out in the marketplace that Magic is not just a place you go to on a powder day, which is something that I've been striving for about 6 years
Especially
now.
when you only have a few powder days in a season.
Exactly. Given those powder days that are so limited.
Yeah.
So that's our main distinguishing point from Mad River. And listen, we'll never have a snowmaking system similar to or as grand and powerful as some of our neighbors. But our snowmaking system is getting better and better every year, and as a result, we're changing the perception out in the marketplace that Magic is not just a place where you go on powder days.
How do you measure the amount of snow that you put down in the season? Is it cubic yards? Is it acreage?
Yeah, it's really acre feet of snow. Okay. So you basically calculate the acreage of a particular trail and understand that you've got to put at least an acre foot of snow or a foot of snow in each acre out there.
So compared to, let's say, 2006 when you first arrived, right?
Yes.
How much acre feet of snow were they putting down relative to last season, just as an indicator of how...
That's a good question.
How much progress you've made with the existing system?
We make about twice as much snow as we did in 2006-07. So we've upped our game and increased our ability to make that snow by essentially 100%.
Now, where typically do your skiers and snowboarders come from, would you say? If you could do a cross-section.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Magic, because of its general reputation as just being different than the other areas, is oftentimes perceived as being a locals mountain. However, in reality, still most of our business comes from the outside states where everybody gets most of their business. Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. One thing actually we're really trying to do is we're trying to attract more local people. And part of that is the perception that Magic sort of was teetering on the abyss of not opening any longer. Magic doesn't make snow. And like I said, we're
fighting past demons.
We're fighting past demons, and we're starting to make some headway against those past demons. And what we're going to do this year, actually, in an effort to attract more locals, is we're going to have an ultra cheap day on Thursdays.
Ultra cheap day, okay. Do I have to present a
it's actually not
ID
not even going to be exclusive for locals. It's going to be for anybody.
Okay.
But we're gonna throw it out there and have somewhere between $15 and $20 lift tickets on Thursdays this season.
Let's hope the snow gods.
And we're hoping what that will do is attract local people and make them say to themselves, "Hey, $15, let's give it a shot."
Exactly.
And I'm really convinced that once people come there, they'll get a big kick out of it and they'll come back. That's been my experience over the years in terms of growing the business. Just to get people to come give it a try has been our most difficult task. Once we get them there, they love it. It's a different atmosphere. It's a great natural facility, and they do come back.
And the terrain.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, in the past there have been some issues with the lifts because of their age. How have you dealt with those issues in terms of lift reliance and operability and?
I fully acknowledge we have had some issues with our lifts over the years. They are old. One of them is an original lift from the early 1960s, and our newer lift, we have two lifts that both go to the top, is from vintage 1971. So they're definitely not brand new by any stretch of the imagination. However, when I first landed there, one of the problems over the previous several years is that the regular routine maintenance had not been done in a complete fashion. So we've actually made it a real priority to dig into the guts of these lifts, change bearings, change all kinds of parts that need changing. And so I believe the lifts are a lot more reliable than they used to. That being said, listen, we did have an incident last year over Christmas week, which is the worst possible time that it could have happened, where one of our lifts went down. And that's going to happen. I actually talked
Hey,
with
it happens at every mountain.
Well, that's true, and that's what I was about to say. I talked with the lift inspector, and I guess in order to ease my pain, he said, "Hey, listen, this happened at X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
4 or 5 other places over the course of the season." But one of the things we're doing to avert that possibility this year is we're the red chair, which is our sort of our workhorse chair and our newer one, so to speak. We're in there doing a great deal of work on it this summer. Combined with that fact, we actually never had 2 lifts going at the beginning of the season. We've never had that going due to required maintenance and the costs associated with it. This year we're going to have 2 lifts going, so if perchance one of the lifts goes down, we will have a backup. It won't have to shut.
Are those lifts, are they diesel, electric?
They're runoff electric motors.
Okay. Okay, so...
And there's a gas engine backup in case there's electrical failure.
I guess going back to Kindred Spirits, Mad River Glen, let's talk a little bit about this campaign that you spearheaded beginning in 2010, I believe,
yes.
right?
Yes.
To raise funds privately to build up some capital to make some further investments in the mountain. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. Well, it was greatly modeled after what they did at Mad River Glen, which was they turned that mountain into a cooperatively owned mountain, where they went out and sold shares to individuals, and individuals collectively own the mountain, and they do so to this day. I sort of took a hybrid route off of that and said it didn't seem feasible when just doing all the numbers that I would be able to garner enough shareholders for it to be a 100% cooperatively owned. So I did a hybrid offering whereby we put out shares for individuals to buy, similar to Mad River Glen, in an effort to raise $1 million to put money into the snowmaking system in the lifts. And it was a lot different than many areas that go out to try to raise money. They go to hedge funds, they go to big investors. Magic just didn't have enough of a business base to make it enticing, quite frankly, for a large investor to come and pump a whole lot of money into it. So I took a look at what Mad River did and said, you know what, there is an alternate route here. And we started that campaign. It took 2.5 years to reach our goal, but we did. And
when did you reach your goal?
It was in the spring of 2012.
Okay. And
as a result, that money is being slowly invested because we want to be conservative with it, but slowly invested in the mountain and improving the infrastructure and buying new high-efficiency snow guns. But it's generally earmarked about 90% towards snowmaking and lift improvement.
Very, very impressive, and obviously congratulations to you. I think that's a substantial achievement. Now tell me, as an investor, do I get a lifetime pass to the area? Like,
well, you know what's interesting, I actually had several discussions with the folks up in Mad River Glen, saying, what are the perks? Why is somebody going to invest here? What do you give them? And the guy up at Mad River Glen told me, well, the first thing we do after they make an investment is we send them a bill for their annual minimum. They don't get anything. And he said it jokingly,
yeah.
but in reality, the whole idea behind these types of, for lack of a better term, it's almost like crowdfunding. In ski areas such as ours in Mad River Glen, is to keep the mountain going, to make it sustainable, to input a little bit of capital to keep it going. So really, the primary thing that people get out of this is
stable operation,
is more emotional and less concrete. It's the fact that Magic Mountain is going to keep going and keep improving and keep existing. Now they do have we do have discounts on season passes and tickets and that type thing for the investors. So it's not entirely without any type of return, but there is not a free season pass for life.
But there's also a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of novelty in saying, I'm a ski resort owner.
Exactly. I'm part of the club.
Ski resort magnate.
Exactly.
Part of the club. Interesting talking about unique ownership structures in the ski industry. You're familiar with, obviously, Jay Peak and Bill Stenger.
Yes.
And his massively ambitious operation up there with his program, the EB5 Visa.
And massively successful.
Right? Massively successful. I mean, we're talking of hundreds of millions of dollars in investment up there.
Right.
Did you ever look at that program as a potential alternative to bring capital in, the whole EB5
Well,
program?
interesting that you ask. As a matter of fact, I have. And Magic is not in a position right now to approach an EB5 pursuit, primarily because of essentially the money it takes.
It's like
to
$500 or $1 million, right?
Yeah, well, per person, it's a $500,000 investment per person, and what they get out of that is they get a green card.
They have to create 10 jobs, I believe, right?
One of the requirements for taking that investment in is that you've got to prove via economic studies that you're going to create 10 jobs for every $500,000 that you take in. But what I was actually driving at is the costs associated with pursuing an EB5 application is probably in the range of a couple $100,000, and that's just not
a single application.
Yes, by the time
which you have to bear.
Exactly.
That's
so it's a little bit beyond our means right now. However, I should quickly add that it's not something that I've written off. It's something that we're considering and basically trying to go out and find a basis to raise some money to perhaps pursue an EB5 operation. Now, with ours, it would be nothing at all like what they did at Jay Peak. I mean, we're a ski area. We intend to remain a ski area. We're not going to have water parks. We're not going to have huge hotels associated with it. So it would be much smaller scale if we in fact do pursue it. But it's not something that's off the table. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's intriguing. You see Bill Stanger's success, and it's impressive.
It's mind-blowing what he's
it
done
really
out
is.
there. And he's actually been very successful at pulling a lot of Canadians over the border. And of course, Canadian dollar is just about at par with the US dollar, if not
Yes.
stronger now. So obviously is boding very well for him. Just talking about the Vermont ski industry in general, of course, you're fortunate, like every other ski industry around here. You're close to 45 million people within a 4-hour drive, something like that.
Yeah,
sure, right?
it's an impressive figure.
Very impressive figure, which is why I think Vermont is number 3 in skier visit totals in the country. I think Utah being number 1, Colorado being number 2.
That's correct.
Little old Vermont is number 3.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. It is due to, again, those millions and millions of people within a 4.5 hour drive, some many closer. It's also a statement to the Vermont commitment to making snow. And I hate to keep going back to that, but that really is instrumental in keeping Vermont high up in the rankings, despite its relative small size in terms of the number of skiers that operate.
Yeah, I mean, every day having a good experience on snow and coming back smiling and, and wanting to go back the next day, that's very important. Curious to know a little bit more about your, how you market Magic to the greater region.
Well, we, as you can suspect, we've got a very limited marketing budget. One of the things that I've focused primarily upon in terms of budgeting monies is, well, where do we deploy it? Where does it make sense to deploy it? And my conclusion has been, and it's an ongoing conclusion, is that we've got to get our product improved. We've got to improve our product. We've got to put snow on the hill. We can't go out and spend a whole lot of marketing dollars and therefore deflect those dollars from our snowmaking operation and then have people come and have a subpar experience. So that being said, we do a lot of social media, which essentially is free. I've got a guy who is doing that for me, has been doing it for a few years now, and it does a terrific job on Facebook and Twitter.
And delivers decent return.
And we find out, you know what's really interesting about those various media is that not only does it get you out in front of a whole lot of people for free, but it engages your patrons. And we've got a really active website and a really active Facebook crowd that we have a lot of fun with, and basically we pique their curiosity, we keep them involved, we probably keep them apprised as to what's going on at the mountain. Exactly, the discussions are really important. We poll our patrons quite frequently and say, what would you like? What do you need? What are you interested in? And one of the things that people really do like about Magic is that they feel like they've got a real close connection to mountain management, and part of that is by way of our marketing through Facebook and Twitter. Now, the other type of marketing we do is we do some local radio, we do a little bit of local print. We attend ski shows and go around and pitch our product and say, hey, come give us a try. I've got a guy out there doing a lot of attempted sales work and recruiting some people to come back to Magic. One thing I run into is, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this phrase, magic. I remember back in the 1980s I used to go there. And so our whole pitch is, come give it another try.
Yeah.
I think you'll be impressed, because the mountain was closed from 91 through 98. Yep. And given the fact that's 14 years ago that it reopened, it still is a challenge to overcome that perception out in the skiers marketplace. Mm-hmm. Some of the first things that people say to you, oh, are you open?
Yeah.
And I say, of course we're open. We've been open since 1998. Take a look. So that's one of our biggest challenges, is to let people know we're open and we're thriving, we're improving, and that we are making snow and we're grooming the place. Those are the three primary things that people misperceive about Magic.
The perception must be that because you're such a small operation, that because of the variability and the challenging ski winters that we've had, that there's no way that an operation could make it through a winter like 2011 and 2012, but you're actually a little bit bigger than people seem to think, and your numbers reflect that. And
a little bigger, and the mountain itself is a little bit bigger than people think, and it's got a vertical drop that challenges many of our neighbors.
Yep. 1,700 vertical.
1,700 vertical drop, which is really pretty impressive for a Southern Vermont ski area.
Decent pitch.
Great pitch.
Great pitch.
And one of the things, however, that this is not an attempt to be everything to everybody, but one of the things that some people actually perceive is, Magic, that's too hard for me. It's all expert terrain. When in reality, we do have a significant portion of our terrain is expert, which, over 40%. But we've got some really terrific intermediate, lower intermediate trails that...
Yeah, some of the lower portions of your trails are, they widen out.
Exactly, and then we've got some top to bottom stuff that has a real nice flavor of weaving your way through the woods. As opposed to, many of the intermediate trails now, in order to make it easier for less skilled skiers, they're just boulevards. Yeah. And so this could be a real interesting, fun, unique experience for even the intermediate skier out there and even the beginner.
Now, Timber Ridge.
Yes.
I think there's people every now and then must speculate, I wonder if Magic's going to make a run for Timber Ridge. Is there any possibility that side of the mountain might be resurrected?
Well, I'm
or is it's all privately owned now, and that's probably beyond the realm of
It's
possibility?
privately owned by a local gentleman by the name of Tim Waker.
Yep.
Who is the owner of Mountain Plumbing and Heating, and he bought it several years ago, I think 8 or 10 years ago. And Tim and I are good friends, and we talk a lot, and he's actually been of immeasurable help to me in getting the Magic snowmaking system up and running and modified and training guys, because he's actually got a distinct background in snowmaking.
Is that where they throw the friendly gathering?
And that is so Timber Ridge is where they throw the friendly gathering. So despite the fact that it's not an open and operating ski area, Tim's got a great deal of activity going on over there. Mm-hmm. In addition to that concert in the summer, he actually mows his trails, grooms them out, takes people up on snowmobiles on Saturdays.
He's private ski and snowboarding paradise.
Exactly. It's a great spot. It's a fun spot. And the neat thing about it is it's got different terrain than Magic. So it would be a really nice complement to what we have now. Mm-hmm. That being said, there are no immediate plans to reconnect with Tim, to Timber Ridge.
You've got your hands full already.
I've got my hands full now. However, I always, not so jokingly, say to him, when are we going to reconnect these two places? Although, again, no.
Is there still any remains of a lift over on that side?
No lifts. It's all been taken out. So it would require a substantial investment. You'd have to reconnect some snowmaking over there. You'd have to get a lift going over there, which is more than we can chew right now. But it's again something to contemplate for the future.
Put that out in the ether for everyone just to speculate on.
Exactly.
Now, talking about summer events. I've been up there for some fantastic fireworks. You happen to be known for some of the best fireworks in the area.
Yeah.
Wonder where the funds come from that, but you do put a law on some summer activities as well, correct?
Well, one of the things we have tried to do the past couple of years in particular is to get some summertime activity there and therefore some summertime revenue flowing. One of the things we do, the fireworks every 4th of July, we do in conjunction with the town of Londonderry. So it's the town of Londonderry that actually puts on the fireworks. We host them for them. And it's a great show. They do a wonderful job, and it is up close and personal fireworks show.
It's a great spot to see fireworks. There's no doubt about it.
Exactly.
Can't get any closer.
But what we've just opened this past summer, 2013, is a tree/zipline park called TimberQuest.
Okay.
And essentially what that is, it's an off-the-ground adventure in the woods where there are approximately 75 platforms built around trees, anywhere from 10 to 25 or 30 feet in the air. And in between those platforms, there are various cargo nets, balancing
like a ropes course
drills.
with
It's really just like a ropes. It's a ropes course, and it's people wear harnesses and they're always clipped in, so the safety's not an issue. And we've got a whole bunch of zip lines incorporated within the course, but also once you get to the top of the course, there are 4 or 5 great zip lines, lengthy zip lines that come out of it.
Fantastic.
And yeah, it's been a big hit this summer. It's in its inaugural year. We built it in the summer of 2012, and we opened it on weekends last fall just to sort of do a dry run, and we opened it up this summer, and it's been picking up really nicely. And the past month, the month of August, it was actually really quite successful.
So that's still open and available right now?
It's still open on weekends in the fall. It's open every day through Labor Day, and then it's open on weekends through Columbus Day.
Okay. Now, just a little bit about the future. You've got this bucket, some investment funds here at your disposal. What does the future, the next 4 to 5 years, hold in store for Magic?
Yeah, the thing that we've got to be careful about is to not try to grow too fast. Of course, everybody would love double-digit growth every year, but to really just stick with what's been working for us, which means to incrementally improve this snowmaking system until we've got it to a point where people will not be of the perception that Magic is only a place where you go on powder days. So it's a continuation of improving our snowmaking systems, maintaining reliability of the lifts, doing the annual maintenance on those, upgrading them when they need to be upgraded, and gradually then spend a little bit more time and money marketing, and try to get some skier visits up there. My business plan calls for trying to attain a level of approximately 35,000 skier visits, which in the grand scheme of things is very, very small compared to what some of our neighbors do. But the business plan is designed in a way that we stay small, we stay unique, we stay somewhat uncrowded, and there's a place in the market for that. And if we can boost our skier visits, we're at about 21 now. If we can boost them another 10 to 15,000, we'll be in really good shape.
Now, what are you hearing about this upcoming season in terms of potential snow forecast?
The upcoming season.
We always play this game, right?
The famous Farmer's Almanac.
Exactly. What have you been hearing? What keeps you up at night?
I hear nothing but good things, and actually that's not a marketing ploy. I've heard a lot of actual great statements from not only the Farmer's Almanac, but perhaps maybe more scientific type weather analyses that say it's going to be a long, cold, snowy winter. Now, do I put a lot of stock in that? No. We've got to keep our nose to the grindstone.
How warm was it yesterday?
Yeah, it was 89, 90 degrees yesterday.
But no, I hear you. I've heard the same things, and it's like last year. It's always interesting. You kind of gauge how the winter is going to be by the first few weeks, between the holidays. And I remember last year was kind of disappointing, and then boom, we really lucked out.
Well, that's the sort of both the wonderful thing about this sport and being in this business, and the most distressing at the same time, is that it can turn around in a heartbeat with a beautiful storm, and that storm can be followed by another one. Last year is a great example. It started off with a great storm in December, and then there were 2 big thaws in January. Wiped out a whole lot of skiing and put us really on low numbers for a month. And then the snow started coming regularly and in big quantities. And it turned out to be a great year as a result. So that makes it fun. It makes it interesting. It makes it precarious, to say the least. But that's the ski business.
Yeah, and of course, we're almost running out of time here. But if you could just talk about the ski business in general and the state of Vermont in general. I know the ski business was kind of waning there, and then we had the snowboarding industry, and of course snowboarding industry was a big help for the ski industry, because that was forced them to develop the parabolic skis and the shape skis and the freestyle skis. Maybe if you could just give me a couple minutes of your perception as to where the industry is going in Vermont. You know, are we looking at better days ahead? Are there challenges ahead? I mean,
well,
what's your perception?
The ski business, according to the NSAA, National Skiers Association, it's a challenge in that the baby boomer generation is aging. And those are avid skiers, and therefore, foreseeably, there may be actually less participants over the next few years. So the real challenge is that we've got to recruit new people. We've got to get younger people doing it more frequently. And the state of Vermont, across the board, has done a wonderful job in upgrading the snowmaking systems, and really with the high efficiency guns. I give great credit to the various companies that manufacture these guns. The efficiency level in snowmaking guns has been increased tremendously. So that will serve as a buffer and serve to help the Vermont ski industry over the years. But, you know, the interesting thing about skiing, and you as a skier probably can appreciate that.
Snowboarder.
Both,
doesn't matter.
You know, I use that term generically.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
we welcome snowboarders too. But it strikes sort of an internal passion that anybody who actually gets out there and participates in it and takes a liking to it, they're going to go out there and do it.
Oh, yeah.
Almost regardless of the weather. Obviously, in the bigger years, they're going to come more frequently, but they're going to go out there and do it. So I think the base of ski visitors, skiers and boarders, is actually really pretty stable. What we've got to do is get people to come and do it a little bit more frequently by a couple things: making the product more consistent, and by making it affordable, which is really difficult to do this day and age. Skiing is not an inexpensive sport. One of the things,
$86 at some of these.
Yeah, one of the things that we pride ourselves in at Magic is we really make a concerted effort to keep the cost down. We price our tickets lower than anybody else in the industry. Again, we're going to throw out this great cheap $15 a day on Thursdays, just to try to make it a little bit more accessible, a little bit more affordable for those who can't come as frequently, and maybe give them a chance to come more often. And we also do that type of pricing for locals too.
Well, Jim, I thank you for spending an hour with us today. I certainly hope that your predictions certainly come true about this upcoming season. And again, you've done a fine job the last number of years, especially with this program and raising all the funds and increasing skier visits, and just bringing attention to what has always been a great little mountain, and hopefully will soon be a great bigger mountain, and it's good to see that it's open and it's thriving and you're doing good things with it. So thanks for being here.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you all for joining me on my show, and this has been Q&A Live, and we'll see you next time.